Hey, Video Diary. So I made a video yesterday. I think it was yesterday or the day before, but I didn't like it, And it's sometimes I guess what I don't like about it is when it sounds like I am just complaining, you know. Um, and I don't like it. That's probably why I keep, distance from people. Like, I think there's a lot of, I have, what am I trying to say? Like, it's difficult to be normal, you know? I ran into somebody who I did tell about this horrible tragedy. And I saw that person today, and I realized they're not catching on that this is like as devastating a thing for me as it is in some way. But then, and I realized like people don't have a context for it. I I a couple of times saw parents whose this happened to them, and I just avoided them. I wanted nothing to do with anything having to do with their kid ODing for, fear of contagion. Trying to find some way to, you know, explain it. And one of the ways I explained it was those were bad parents, that let that happen, that let their kid get into that. That's probably not true. There are plenty of instances where parents are not there for their kids, not really there, which could lead very quickly to kids having associations, young people having associations that will take them very quickly to drugs and jail, shit like that. So having parents, it's probably better to have two parents than one parent, I had a complete train wreck of a marriage with Forrest's mom, with my kid's mom. I had two kids, and I always will feel bad about that. That, not that I had a relationship that didn't work out, but that I subjected innocent people to that, and that's what's not right. That it's everybody's going to get pregnant, have sex, and get someone pregnant, or get pregnant, or it's going to happen because people go for the pleasure. They just do. So it's going to happen. But what the problem with that is when you bring kids into the world, they got to deal with your bullshit, which isn't theirs. And usually that's like fighting and a breakup and, the demonizing of the other parent, and, and those kids have to pick sides, and it turns into, an era of negotiations between, the parents that have nothing to do with the kids, but the kids just have to deal with that. And I'm sure that kind of stress, competition, nonsense fed into this with my son. I think we both did our best, but it took some years to pull it together. And I can't go back. I can only warn people, like, don't get pregnant if you're a female until you've got somebody who can really stick with it. Somebody who's got some skills, real skills, and education wouldn't hurt. And you too, it's like, it's a great era for both parents to be able to educate themselves and work. Add value to your community. Taking care of your kids is work too. That's a full-time job. I love taking care of my little kids, but I also felt the stress of what that is like day in, day out at times when I had that responsibility. So I went through 6 years of college in my 30s, into my 40s, mid-30s into my 40s, while my kids were little. Generally, I think that was a really good experience because they witnessed a lot of engagement. And I was very engaged with their schooling because I was doing kind of the same thing at the same time. I was working, I painted, I taught lessons, I had various contracts as an actor. I worked for 7 years for one company. What else? Where did I get to? Oh yeah, that I didn't like my video. And I think it was, the oh poor me, and, I almost hate that more than the grief I feel, because whenever just living, I'm going to be in some measure feeling sorry for the man who lost his son. For me, the person I am, the way I felt about my son, the way I feel now, I could go down a rabbit hole and very much just be focused on my own pain. But all a person has to do is look up, and you will just witness the drama of everybody else's suffering or thriving. There's a lot of thriving. I noticed that too. A lot of drug addicts in New York. I think I just gave money to one, and I feel bad that I did it. And it almost makes me feel like I can't trust homeless people anymore either. I gave him the money, he grabbed it, he ran. I was just like, what the fuck was that? And now I'm almost like, after it happened, certain that he was on drugs. And I'm just so blind. I just want to help people eat, and I realize that, like, well, that's not what they want. I'm generalizing, again. Not a good thing to do. Yeah, so I am partially to blame for Forrest having stressors in his life. I have been prejudiced against parents that have lost kids by blaming them for such a horrible person in their lives that would do such a thing. I even told that to my son, you know. When some friends of his OD'd, I was like, that's the worst thing a person can do. Look what they did. So I know I'm going to cycle around this thing. I'm going to be angry. I'm going to be hateful. I'm going to be justifiably disgusted and ashamed because it's a disgusting, shameful enterprise. And in a conversation I had with my wife recently, and I realized that my depression, even my suicidal depression, is contagious. You know, like a few days after I go down that stupid path in my brain, people close to me get very, very upset because they saw me give up. You know, they saw me say, fuck this world. You know, that if my own son would pull the shit, kill himself, you know, it just poisoned my life. But it didn't. It just poisoned my mind. You know, my life is good. It's my heart that's broken. And that's a metaphor, right? Do hearts break? I think you can experience a level of emotion that makes you just not want to breathe. Anyway, what was I saying? Yeah, depression is contagious. And suicidal depression especially makes other people say, well, why should they stick it out? And I notice that right away. It's just like, when I say fuck it, other people say fuck it. I also notice that I do that. Like if I meet somebody who is like given up and doesn't give a, you know, I'm not going to, can't pull for that. Or at least it just has the effect that like there's enough veracity, there's enough truth to life being a sick game, you know? There's enough veracity to that you could take that on, but there's just enough, there's as much truth to it being incredibly beautiful and a worthwhile, just incredible experience, even dying at the end, you know, and losing all of your hard-earned whatevers, you know, it still can be beautiful. This isn't beautiful, you know. The dying is the same. The way dying is the same. You return. But the big fuck you at the end of his life, to me, is not a pleasant feeling or taste in my mouth. And I hate that it's how I feel about it. But okay, my wife and I were having a conversation, and she said, well, your grown son was doing drugs. You know, and it just penetrated my mind, and I realized that my son, who's 23, who I expect to be, you know, fulfilling whatever. He's at the school. He's in his last year of university. Training with his MMA mates, and by all accounts, loving life in its minutia. He wasn't supposed to have been doing drugs like that. And that's really what this is all about. We have expectations of each other that have, you know, a variance. Like, my wife is at work right now. Do I have every knowledge of front and back bookend? No. Do you know where everybody is in your... No, but you expect that they're not going to be doing drugs, like shooting up, snorting, stupid, fucking ridiculous bullshit drugs like that. At least I do. If you know about it and you know that they're doing it, then you're in a different game, right? You're in the game of I'm trying to get them to not die, trying to get them to choose life, to find their worth and value. They won't. They won't. They already have it. I think that's what it is. I don't think those people who complain about not having value in life, they have it. It's their drugs. I saw a junkie on the train. I'll put the photo in with this. And he was taking up 4 seats, and I was like, I'm not going to move. I'm going to sit here, and deal with it. But he was disgusting. And I hate to say that, like that another human being is disgusting, but he was completely picked, sore, all up and down. He had a freaking clown mask on his lap, his Coke can in the seat next to him, and smelled like a dumpster. And I just don't get it. I don't get the allure. And all right. So I don't want to go around that. If it's so bad, people would quit it, I think, in droves. There's something about it that they love. They love. And here he is going, like all the people are going to work on this train, artists, all kinds of people. I don't want to include artists, but I'm just saying this. It's like, it's not like the machine, You're in the machine. If you're a junkie, you're in the real machine. You're in hell. That's what it was. He's like in a parallel hell on earth. Wow. So my son, 23 years old, I was expecting not this, right? And would have dealt with it, would have helped in any way I could. But at that point, it's already like, you're in that other game. It's like, why would he do this? Why would he go to drugs again? And when we trust that, like, I'm paying for this stuff, he could have bought his drugs with money I sent him. It amounts to the same thing. So that's where the trust is. I trusted that he was having the incredible life he was saying that he was having. He sent his girlfriend at the time a couple of pictures of holding empty bags of heroin, saying he's pouring it in the toilet, or this is the last time. And that was sometime in May or June. So he had plenty of time to tell me, or anyone. And at that time he probably thought he could handle it, and it's all too late. But it's like, I don't know. All that's in my mind. I don't know. I just know what he did. Yeah, so I'm complaining again. But I guess I'm also saying to other junkies, other users or people thinking of using, like, don't. Do you need more than that? Fucking ridiculous. You bored? You so bored with your own chemistry? Smoke a joint, drink a beer, fucking roll down a hill. Take control of your life. Own yourself. Be good to yourself. Create the most incredible you can. That's harder. That's much, much harder than just getting high or eating, or drinking, or just, it's like, it's hard to have a good life.